Hi, this is Lizzie from Lizzie's Dressing Table. So welcome to my next video, and I'll tell you folks, thanks for tuning in. I am so excited to make this video. I have actually been planning the content for this video for a couple of months now. Sometimes if you're into antiquing, you get to a certain age and you're starting to antique, it becomes really like a time capsule, going to a museum, seeing some of the history that you remember from your younger years. And for me, that is part of the appeal of antiquing. You never know what you're going to find, what your mom or your grandmother had in her household, or what your dad had or your grandfather. So that is part of the love that I have antiquing. And so sometimes when you antique, and you never know what you're going to find, sometimes you find something so exciting, it's like nirvana. I would call it something else, but I don't want to be real risque. But anyway, back a couple of months ago, my husband and I went to an antique store, and I'm not going to tell you where because I don't want to give away my secrets, but I found a stash of Victoria magazines. And this magazine is out still, but these are issues from the early to mid 1990s. I even found one from 1989, and I was like, holy, I can't believe that I found these issues. I found one actually on the first floor of the store, but then when I went up to the second level, I'm just going to show you some of the covers. This is the December 1993 issue. Do you remember this? It's a Christmas issue. We also have this one from May of 1994. Look at this, an issue featuring blue and white, which was a very popular color scheme then, and it's still popular now. I'm going to hold this up. This is an October 1995 issue. And I found a total of 22 issues. They were $3 an issue, which is only 50 cents more than they were back on the newsstand when they first appeared in the 90s. So I don't know about you, I was an avid reader of Victoria magazine. To me, the magazine just, for me, defined the aesthetic that I still embrace decades later. Magazine had a tagline which was a return to loveliness, and it was all about not so much living like a Victorian, it wasn't about being prudish or anything like that, but it was definitely an aesthetic. It was all about living graciously. And at the time, and still, it included content on home and garden decorating, fashion and beauty, food, home decor, collectibles, and profiles on women who started their own companies, who were entrepreneurs, who are basically just remarkable women. I remember that they featured Tasha Tudor quite a bit. I don't know if she's still living. I would imagine not. But it was just a fabulous magazine. They also featured in their August 1992 issue the actress Leslie Caron, who is known not only for Gigi when she was very young, but also Chocolat. I wanted to talk a little bit about Victoria magazine to give you a history of the publication, and at the time that it closed in 2003, before it was resurrected in 2007, it had approximately 1 million readers. And something I also found really interesting about the magazine is that it was just chock full of perfume ads. Now, I am not a regular reader of the magazine today. I just, I'm not a huge magazine reader. I still love the Victoria aesthetic. It was just lush back in the 1990s, and it was just escapism. It was something that I loved to read. I would put on my headphones and play Enya and look at photographs from Victoria magazine. I remember the photographer Tashi Atsuki, who seemed to just do photography, but he just had a hazy lens over everything that he photographed. It was an absolutely beautiful magazine, and it's beautiful now, but there's just something about the old Victoria that was so beautiful, so visually stunning and lush and sumptuous. And so anyway, I thank you for allowing me to wax rhapsodic. I thought for this video I would play the part. I am wearing a Laura Ashley dress that I made about a year ago. I purchased a pattern off Etsy of a 1980s Laura Ashley dress. I've got my lace collar, which if you have seen Victoria magazine, you know there was lace and more lace and more lace in that magazine. But like I said, it really inspired me. It inspired my aesthetic. It introduced me to Penhaligon's perfume, Caswell Massey, just a lot of the English product brands. So anyway, again, thank you for letting me ramble about an absolute passion of mine. But just to give you a little bit of history of Victoria magazine, it was established in 1987 by editor-in-chief Nancy Lindemeyer and John Mack Carter. From 1987 to 2003, it was run by Hearst Corporation, or Hearst Publishing, and it had writers in residence such as Susan Minot and Madeline Langle. The photographers, as I mentioned, were Tashi Atsuki, along with many other photographers who just created beautiful photography. Doing my research about Victoria magazine, it folded in 2003, and some people claim that it was due to declining ad revenue spurred on by 9/11. They just could not gain the kind of advertisement that they used to have. And anyone looking at one of these magazines can see that it's pretty thick. And they had a price of $2.50. And after they relaunched it in 2007, it was Hoffman Media who took it over, and Phyllis Hoffman became the editor-in-chief. The price increased to $5 an issue. And actually, I have one of the more recent issues of Victoria magazine. This is September, October 2025 issue, and this has ballooned to $11. So yeah, as with everything, price goes up. When Hoffman Media resurrected it in 2007, Hoffman Media took charge of editorial, production, distribution, and advertising of Victoria magazine. So I was really curious about whatever happened to Nancy Lindemeyer. Apparently, she left the as editor-in-chief in 2003, essentially retiring. She wanted to start or open up a jazz club in New York City with her son Phil, who was I think he was a saxophone player, which I found really interesting. So when Peggy Kennedy took over Victoria magazine, she was the second in charge at House Beautiful. And so at that time, in between 2000 and 2003, Peggy Kennedy oversaw the redesign of Victoria magazine and really sort of modernized the logo, and it just did not go over well with Victoria's readers. I remember seeing the modernized logo. I don't have any issues from Victoria magazine from that period between 2000 and 2003, but I just, the cover and the redo of the logo just did not appeal to me, like a lot of the readers. So some attribute it to declining ad sales. Some just say that the redo was not great. Victoria began to run longer articles about heavier subjects. It perhaps was no longer an escape for women like it was for me and many other subscribers. So it folded out of nowhere. There was no farewell message to subscribers. And so eventually Linda Meyer became a design consultant and a blogger. She launched a casual line of furnishings for Hooker Furniture in 2006 called Intimate Home. That's according to Westchester Magazine. And I looked up her blog, and her last entry was actually 2016. So I'm not quite certain what happened to Nancy Linda Meyer, but anyway, Nancy, you put out a gorgeous, gorgeous magazine. And I'll tell you, the vintage issues from the 90s and the 80s go for what some consider a pretty hefty price. From what I read, Phyllis Hoffman of Hoffman Media, when she took over Victoria magazine, actually purchased an entire collection of magazine issues and paid about $1,000. So for me to find issues for $3 a piece, I was just ecstatic, absolutely ecstatic. It was one of those finds when you antique that just make the hunt all worth it. So what I would like to do today is talk about some of the perfumes that were advertised in Victoria magazine, many of which I have, and many of which can still be purchased today. You might need to go on eBay or Etsy to find them, but they are still available. So first of all, and I wanted to show you ads too. So the first one, and you'll have to pardon my sticky notes, I know, very Victorian item. But anyway, this is the advertisement for Vanderbilt perfume. And it says that it's discovered the classic elegance of Vanderbilt extra long lasting eau de perfume. Let it release the splendor of you. I remember commercials with the swan and the lady with the blonde hair with it flowing in the air, in the wind. So I have here Vanderbilt perfume. And this is considered an oriental floral. It was launched in 1982, and the nose on the perfume is probably someone I consider the Grand Duchess of big florals from the 1980s, Sophia Grossman. I found this in an antique store many, many miles away from me. I think I bought it for maybe $10. It's a pretty full bottle. And to talk about the notes, it has the top notes of aldehydes, orange blossom, pineapple, lavender, bergamot, and green notes. The middle notes are carnation, tuberose, ylang ylang, orris root, jasmine, and rose. And the base is vanilla, sandalwood, cinnamon, opopanax, which is also known as frankincense, musk, civet, and vetiver. So it's a gorgeous, big, honking floral, and I love it. So one of my treasures. So the next perfume on my list is Estee Lauder's Beautiful. And so here is an ad. I don't know if you remember Paulina Poroskova from the Estee Lauder ad. But I have a bottle of Estee Lauder's Beautiful. And it is indeed beautiful. And it's something that you can still go to CVS and purchase this for $55, $56. So it's not a big bottle of perfume, but I don't ever find that I like huge bottles of perfume anyway, because when you're a collector, there's just so much perfume that you can wear. I only have 2 arms. So, but the scent Beautiful was launched in 1985. Certainly considered a floral. In fact, the information that I saw online argues or claims that there is about 1,000 flowers included in this. And when I go over the notes, you're going to see. So this might take some time. And again, Beautiful is another creation of Sophia Grossman. And she also created this with Bernard Chant and Max Gavery. The top notes are galbanum, rose, lily, black currant, fruity notes, mandarin orange, cassia, bergamot, and lemon. The middle notes are tuberose, carnation, marigold, mimosa, narcissus, jasmine, ylang ylang, chamomile, lily of the valley, lilac, freesia, pink violet, sage and neroli, geranium, magnolia, and orange blossom. And the base is sandalwood, amber, vetiver, musk, cedar, and vanilla. So I think Beautiful is indeed absolutely beautiful. And I remember it from the 1980s. So gorgeous, gorgeous scent. And I think by the time that I am done with all the perfumes that were advertised in Victoria magazine, you could also call this, or you could title this video, Big Hair Florals, because that's what was popular in the 80s and going into the early 90s. So the next perfume on the list is Vanilla Fields. So here is a 2-page spread of Vanilla Fields. This was from March 1994. And Vanilla Fields is something that I purchased at a great antique store. And actually it's a vintage clothing store. And this is one of my favorite vanillas. And I haven't shown it on my channel yet, but I have a friend who was actually a friend of my mom's who wore this. So it's great when you can sniff a perfume and it reminds you of someone who is just so special to you. So that's part of why I love perfume. So Vanilla Fields is considered an Oriental vanilla. It was launched in 1993. The top notes are coconut, peach, and bergamot. The middle notes are jasmine, geranium, and lily of the valley. And the base has vanilla, tonka bean, amber, sandalwood, musk, Virginia cedar, and patchouli. And it's a scent that I don't think is particularly warm. You know, when I talk about vanillas, a lot of times I like to wear them in the fall. But this is kind of a scent that you can wear more in the warmer weather. And some would argue you can wear vanilla perfumes all year round, which I totally agree. But this is just a very, I think, summery vanilla. So anyone who read Victoria magazine probably saw the ad for Truly Laced. You might have remembered the young woman with the curly hair behind a lace curtain. So I wanted to show you that ad. So if you'll just bear with me as I go through my So the question was in the ad, which came first, Truly Love or Truly Lace? So here's the ad. And this was from May of 1994. So I was curious about Truly Lace, and what I had to do was go on eBay and find that perfume. It is still available. So I had to get a teeny tiny sample. So, but you know, with some of these tiny bottles, they may not smell great when you first uncork them, but they do actually smell great. What I find though too is that if you put them on your wrist, they'll only last a couple of hours, which this is what happened with Truly Lace in this situation. I used a cotton ball for it, and actually the cotton ball smelled great. And it smelled great for hours. In fact, this is maybe a couple of weeks after I dabbed this. So Truly Lace is really nice. It reminds me of the big florals of the 1980s. So to talk a little bit about Truly Lace, that's considered an oriental floral. It was introduced in 1992. The top notes are fruit notes, orange blossom, gardenia, green notes, and bergamot. The middle notes are jasmine, tuberose, ylang ylang, lily of the valley, rose, and orchid. And the base is vanilla, amber, sandalwood, musk, oak moss, and cedar. And it's a beautiful scent, and it's one that I really like. Maybe I'll try to find one with a nozzle, but yeah, it's a gorgeous perfume. So it might have been Love Came First and then Truly Lace. Next perfume that I actually was not able to find a lot of information on was Longing. And like Truly Lace, and I'll hold this up, and hopefully it is not blurry. You almost can't see the name. But this was a Coty or a Coty creation. And once again, it doesn't smell great on the first uncorking, but when you put it into a cotton ball, you splash a little of it and then you swipe your wrist. Again, it didn't last a long time, but I'll tell you, this is a perfume. Oh my gosh, this was really, really great. And it's almost tempting me to find a larger bottle. In fact, looking on eBay, it's one of those scents, because it's vintage. The price is going up, unfortunately. So I think that I saw a bottle maybe for between $30 and $50. So, but let me tell you, it's gorgeous. I was unfortunately not able to find information on a couple of the online databases that I usually look at, but it's just an absolute winner to me. And then the next scent that I want to talk about is yet another Coty creation, and this is called Les Fleurs. And this was actually created in and launched in 1907. So this is an old perfume. It was created by Francois Coty, and the only information that I could find online was it has floral notes. So pretty down and dirty. But it's a gorgeous ad, and I'll tell you, it was in just a ton of issues in Victoria. So it was a beautiful ad, very Victorian. So yeah, unfortunately not a lot of information, but I can tell you it was more aldehydic, which I always equate with spicy. Not a favorite of mine, but it certainly was very interesting to smell it after seeing the ad over and over and over again in Victoria magazine, not only now, but going back to my my 20s when I was reading the old Victorias regularly. Perfume that I want to feature is Classic Gardenia, and this was a Dana creation, or Dana, however you pronounce it. So I found this probably on eBay, and true to its name, it is a gardenia scent, but unfortunately, and it's got the name on the cap here, a really beautiful gardenia scent. In fact, gardenia is one of the flower notes that I absolutely love. It did just not last it long at all. So I'm stuck with a full bottle of something that just doesn't have a lot of longevity, and I think that's probably because the age of the perfume. But Classic Gardenia is obviously considered a floral scent. The notes are gardenia, fruits, and woodsy notes. So it was a beautiful ad. Bit of a dud when it comes to this sample, but that's not to say that other bottles you might find on eBay wouldn't be better. So lovely, but I do think that there are better gardenia scents, such as Michael Kors' Very Hollywood. That's a beautiful gardenia scent. Williams Sonoma has a gorgeous hand lotion that smells like gardenia. So now the next perfume that I want to talk about is actually one of my favorites, and it's created by one of my favorite perfumers, Dominique Ropion. And this is something that he created very early in his career. And it's not something that I see a lot of people talking about. I do see it online, and it was huge in the 80s. This is Ralph Lauren Safari, and I love this. And to me, you just couldn't find perfume bottles that looked like this. I mean, this was like cut glass, and for me it was just the definition of beautiful, and so like the aesthetic that Victoria was going for. This is one of the few ads. I don't think Safari was advertised in Victoria magazine very much, but folks, this was a vintage store find that, oh God, I almost went crazy when I found this. I found this at an antique store, and it was $8. And this is a scent which has really only thickened and become richer with time. In fact, I don't like to even spray this much. I know that you can still buy this bottle, but for me, it was just a find that was thrilling. And to get the cut glass perfume bottle was such a, to use the same word, it was a thrill. So to talk a little bit about Safari, which is really for me a spice bomb, and it's something that I like to wear in the summer. It's a heavy scent, and I tend to be someone who does not overspray, and one spray of this is all I need. But Safari, as I mentioned, was created by Dominique Ropion. It was launched in 1990, and it's considered a floral green perfume, and it does have quite a few notes. So if you'll be patient, the Top notes include galbanum, tagates, which is also considered marigold, narcissus, hyacinth, orange, black currant, mandarin orange, and cassis. The heart notes are narcissus, orris root, rosemary, Italian jasmine, orange blossom, and rose. And the base notes include vetiver, amber, sandalwood, cedar, and patchouli. So have another look at this gorgeous beauty. Oh, what a thrill. So the next perfume, and I will try to find the ad for this. When you take possession of 22 issues of Victoria magazine, sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. But this is not a perfume that I see a lot of people profiling. This is Fred Hayman Beverly Hills 273. And I found this again in an antique store. This was $20. And that's not that much different from the prices that you would find online. It usually goes for around $20. But this is, once again, like a lot of other perfumes that we have sniffed today, a big floral from the 1980s. And this is, again, considered an oriental floral. And it was launched in 1989. And back then, I was still in high school. And for me, this scent was one of the first, like, more expensive high-end perfumes that I wanted. I remember the bright yellow sweatshirts that had the 273, and I lusted after this perfume. I was so conducive to seeing ads, and just that desire for the perfumes just flamed up in me. But this is a really beautiful perfume. I remember when I received this, or when I purchased it, and it still smells the same. It's just big and a gorgeous floral. So the top notes are tuberose, gardenia, peach, plum, and jasmine. The middle notes are apricot, ylang ylang, and orris root. And the base is amber, spices, sandalwood, vetiver, and cedar. So yeah, I don't see this a lot in vintage hauls, at least on YouTube. So Fred Hayman's 273. So the next scent that I wanted to show was Crabtree and Evelyn Damask Rose. And, you know, Crabtree and Evelyn seem to just go hand in hand with Victoria magazine. That was a company that had that same very British aesthetic. And so what I did is, once again, went on eBay, and I was able to find a Damask Rose soap from Crabtree and Evelyn. And I hope that I'm holding that up where you can see it. It might be a little blurry. If it is, I'll take a picture and inset it into the video. Now, I remember the Crabtree and Evelyn scents from the 1980s and 90s. There was Spring Hill. There was other scents, which I'm drawing a blank on. So I really think, and I did pay a little bit more for this bar of soap than I usually would. Nantucket Briar was one of the scents I remember. I don't know if somebody used this before I bought it. I used it, and unfortunately the scent had just disappeared. I soaped it up, and all it did was smell creamy. So it's a risk that you take when you purchase things off eBay. Some people might say vintage new because they've never opened the box. So it's a risk that you take. But I thought it certainly is a beautiful box. And, you know, if I purchase duds, then I'll just use them for decorating. So, and also with this, I was not able to find any kind of note structure information. So damask rose. Imagine what a damask rose would smell like. So, and the next perfume that I wanted to talk about, and in addition to perfume advertisements in Victoria magazine, they also had Victoria's perfume indulgences. And one of the perfumes that I saw was this beauty. And this is the Karl Lagerfeld version of Chloe. That is a beautiful scent. I remember this from the 1980s. I smell this, and to me it smells like something like a very posh mother would wear, a mom who wears Angora sweaters. Yeah, to me it's like OG. But Chloe, as I mentioned, the scent was created under the Karl Lagerfeld name. It was launched in actually 1973, and it's an IFF creation, IFF being International Flavors and Fragrances. From what I read online, the Chloe of today has been reformulated, so it does not exactly smell like this. It smells a little bit lighter, but the original version was, the nose on it was Betty Bussey, or Betty Buss. Her last name was spelled B-U-S-S-E. And what was interesting about her is she did a lot of perfumes in the 60s and 70s, and she's only really got about 7 perfumes to her name. But this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous scent. The top notes are honeysuckle, orange blossom, ylang-ylang, hyacinth, lilac, coconut, bergamot, aldehydes, and peach. The heart notes are jasmine, rose, narcissus, carnation, and orris root. And the base is oak moss, sandalwood, amber, musk, cedar, and benzoin. Yeah. I love this perfume. I don't spray it very much because, to me, I don't want to use a lot of it. But when I first sprayed this after I acquired it, it was like, oh yeah, this is what I love in florals. And florals will always be, I think, my favorite perfume genre. So that comes to the end of the perfumes that I personally have, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other perfumes that were advertised in Victoria magazine. I saw ads for Lancome's Trésor. If you find issues of Victoria magazine, you will see lots and lots of Lancome ads that had Isabella Rossellini as the model for Lancome, and I know she was the face, and I think she's been revived as the face of Lancome. She was beautiful then, she's still beautiful. I follow her on Instagram, and she's just great. But you'll see also Lancome, Eau de Lancome, that ad. Carolina Herrera had lots of ads for the perfume Floor. Beverly Hills had Wings. There was also Calvin Klein's Eternity advertised, Elizabeth Arden's Red Door and True Love. Yardley of London also advertised. Crabtree and Evelyn was a huge advertiser. They had ads for Veranda, Evelyn, the perfume, Damask Rose, and then also the seashell soaps. Try saying that 5 times fast. There was also Nina Ricci's L'air du Temps, Lady Stetson, which some people claim is the drugstore version of Chanel number 22. There was Jean Two. There was also Opium. You'll also see ads for Sia Siang. Do you remember that perfume? And then also I saw an ad for Jacques Faff's Faf de Faf. But anyway, that is everything that I wanted to discuss. I know that this is going on to be a very long video, so if you're still with me, thank you so much. like I said, I was not only excited to find the issues, when I was looking through them, just seeing all of the advertisements, I thought, you know, since I focus a lot on vintage perfumes, I should do a vintage perfume video based on the advertisements in Victoria magazine. So thank you amongst the viewers who have decided to subscribe to my channel. I truly appreciate you as subscribers. I appreciate you watching this video, and I would be grateful for a thumbs up if you enjoyed my content. I would love it if you would subscribe, because I am devoted to finding more vintage perfumes and just reliving some of the memories. And I hope my discussion of vintage perfumes sparks some memories in you. So leave comments below. Do you remember Victoria magazine from the 1990s? It was such a beautiful magazine, and I would love to reminisce with you about some of your favorite photographs, some of your favorite stories. What do you remember about Victoria magazine? And do you own any of these perfumes? So thanks again for joining me, and have a beautiful and elegant rest of the day. Talk to you later. Bye.